Hi, Steinbeck. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cameras and Coffee, where today I'm enjoying a very nice Gesha coffee from 802 Roasters. Really quickly, before we jump into today's video, I have a favor to ask, and if you've been around the channel long enough, you'll know this is not something I do. On February 17th, a friend of mine died. She was 22 years old. She's someone Celestri and I, she's friends of both of ours. Her name was Alisha, and we used to see her 4, 5, 6 times a week because she lives here and works here, and it's very happy and bright person to be around, and kind of left a void. So, of course, no one expects their 22-year-old daughter to die, so her father and mother set up, or father, I forget which, I think just... Anyway, her family set up a GoFundMe to help cover the funeral expenses. So if you guys could help out, even if it's just a couple dollars or something like that to help the family, who I think would really benefit from that, that would be great. If you can't or don't want to do a GoFundMe, that's okay too. Completely understand that. I'm only mentioning this because Alisha and her mom are friends of ours, and we know them and we know the situation personally. If you guys can't or don't want to support the GoFundMe, just reach out to someone you haven't talked to in a while and see how they're doing, and try to spend some time with them if you can, because this pandemic's been kind of hard on all of us and our ability to maintain those relationships with people. So anyway, I would absolutely consider it a personal favor if you guys could help Alicia's family out. Even just $1 or $2 would be helpful to them. So thank you. And that done, let's jump into the meat of today's video, what you have probably come here to actually see, which is the 2022 lens predictions from the David Hancock channel. So I'm not really one to make predictions. I like to... Steinbeck, stop moving. You have eye goop. I'm not really one to make predictions because, like, they're pointless. But I do like to deal with things that are fact-based and have been announced. So, being February, there have been a lot of lens announcements that have started coming out, and I think some are pretty interesting. These are all going to be OEM. Everything we're going to talk... I'm sorry. These are all going to be third-party, everything we're going to talk about today. Because third parties where a lot of really interesting stuff is going on in the lens space right now. So we've got from amateur photographer, VOIGTLANDER Z and X-mount prime lenses revealed. That came out today. We've got from Photo Rumors, Laowa, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, whatever it was, Laowa. Venus Optics is announcing new Laowa lenses on Monday. Those should be announced by now. I haven't seen anything official from them yet. From Leica Rumors, Venus is announcing the 85mm f6.2x macro in Leica M-mount. And also from Photo Rumors, 2 lenses I've been tracking since before they were announced. The Rockstar 40mm f5.6 and 24mm f6.3, because randomly in January I was searching on AliExpress and saw both of those listed and was like, what? I've not heard anything about these lenses. So anyway, really, so there's a lot of interesting lenses coming out of the Chinese and the Japanese markets for third-party lenses. We're not going to go over every one of them in detail, but what I want to point out are some interesting things about what they all have in common. So we'll start with these VOIGTLANDER Z and X-mount prime lenses. And what we have are a series of primes that are going to be released in both Nikon Z and Fujifilm X mounts. So Nikon Z full frame and APS-C, Fujifilm X micro four thirds and APS-C. I will admit I'm not a Fujifilm X mount expert or really widely knowledgeable about it at all. Anyway, so everything from a standard 50mm f2 to a couple of faster lenses and a macro adapter, which I think is an interesting thing for their lenses. So Z and X, right? Now we've got Venus coming out with a bunch of new lenses, apparently, for micro four thirds. And I thought I saw a table down here that listed all of the compatibility. Nope, looks like they're all going to be micro four thirds. But some refreshes to some old lenses. Looks like a zoom and some primes, like there's a 20 millimeter f4 and so on and so forth. Then in the next one, we've got the Laowa the existing Laowa coming out in Leica M-mount, and then the Rockstar lenses for Leica M-mount. So one of the really interesting things here is that a whole bunch of the new lenses, like some of the Laowas are going to come out in various mounts, including Sony E-mount. But the majority of the new lenses that have been announced so far this year are going to be for micro four thirds, Fuji, and Nikon. There's not a whole lot coming out in the way of third-party lenses for Sony, which is interesting to me. And I don't have a good explanation as to why that is just yet. I'd be very interested in your ideas, letting me know if you think this idea is legit. And I think it has to do with the fact that a lot of the people who are buying Sony are capitalizing on the new Sony camera's really good autofocus system and buying autofocus lenses. None of these that I just mentioned are coming out in autofocus, insofar as I can tell. So it seems like more and more the third-party lenses coming out for Sony are probably going to be things like Samyang, which they are making pretty good autofocus lenses for Sony. An interesting thing about all of these, and so it makes sense, of course, then also to have some be released in Nikon Z-mount, because a lot of the early adopters for Nikon Z, there's not a huge catalog of Nikon-made Z-mount lenses yet. They're out there, and you can put together a really good kit with what Nikon has to offer, but it's not the back catalog of Sony E or any of the legacy SLR systems, right? So it makes sense for these manufacturers who are releasing lenses this year to focus on the newer mounts, because there will be an increased demand for those newer mounts since people haven't bought up their kits with name brand or with the camera maker's lenses yet. So at any rate, I think that's a good strategy on their part. Then we get to Rockstar, and we're going to spend a disproportionate amount of time here because they're doing something interesting that a couple of the other lens makers are doing as well that I didn't mention. They released 2 new lenses this year in Leica M-mount only. That's the 40mm f/5.6 and the 24mm f/6.3. So designed for rangefinder use, they don't need to be super fast because it makes it easier to have proper focus when the lens is a little bit slower on a rangefinder. The 7 Artisans Leica M-mount 50mm f1.1, which is a full frame lens, you got to have a really precise rangefinder calibration in order to get sharp focus on that at any of the wide apertures, which is basically anything wider than about f4. So having these lenses at f/5.6 and f/6.3 makes a lot of sense for having them be very usable on the rangefinder coupled cameras. Also, having things in Leica M-mount, it's really easy to adapt them to the mirrorless because it's a longer flange focal distance than the mirrorless systems. But most importantly, I think that what the lens makers who are releasing in Leica M-mount are doing, and that's 7 Artisans, Rockstar. Has TT Artisans got Leica M-mount? I can't remember. I feel like they do. At any rate, the makers coming out of the Chinese market who are releasing in Leica M-mount, I think they're doing so to link themselves to the coattails of Leica. It's a luxury brand, so if they can make a Leica lens, then clearly they must be making high-end luxury lenses, right? I suspect, not having any specific intel, that could be a big part of the mindset of why these M-mount lenses are coming out. They're also a little bit harder to make because you've got to make a rangefinder couple, which means that if I can make a Leica M-mount lens, then clearly I can make a high quality lens because I can figure out the mechanical portion of it. It's sort of like, if you've ever heard of Miyazaki-san, MS Optical, he makes Leica M-mount lenses of his own design, and they are all interesting lenses, to say the least. Some of them look really stunning. Someday I'll review one. And but he makes some, he's making really high-end lenses for Leica users. So I suspect that Rockstar is going after that market, the high-end luxury camera user, the Leica user, and trying to make their brand look more luxurious because they're making Leica mount lenses. Because up until this point, if you looked at the Rockstar lenses like the 10mm f8, the 27mm 2.8, they weren't lenses that people were taking really seriously. And if you look at the reviews for some of those on YouTube, it's people saying, hey, look at this cheap, silly lens that I picked up, and let's see what it can do. So it's a savvy marketing move on Rockstar's part to release in Leica M-mount. And I suspect that what we're going to see more and more going forward are going to be the third-party makers trying to make the lenses for the emerging mounts where there's going to be more demand. And this is especially true, I think, for this year. The emerging mounts, but also for some of the higher-end camera mounts, because that will give them more, well, it could be argued that it would give them more street cred, or that they would have the perception that they're building street cred by releasing lenses in those luxury mounts. So I think 2022 has the potential to be a really interesting year for the third-party lens market. And the 40mm f5.6 is a lens I really honestly very much want to review. It's not going to happen anytime soon. 40mm is a very bizarre focal length today. It didn't used to be. I have a one of the lenses I'm working on for the Round Glass review series is a 40mm f2.8 kill fit macro D Kylar. Macro Kylar. It's got a lot of words. I can't remember which order they come in. Anyway, it's the double extension f2.8 40mm macro lens. And it's so hard to use. Like 40 to 50 millimeters, not that big a difference. 35 to 40 millimeters, not that big a difference. It doesn't do either of those things well. But back in the rangefinder days, 40 and 45 millimeter lenses were pretty standard. It's just they've fallen out of favor today. So 40 millimeter lens is really a bizarre focal length today. And as for 5.6, why is that the fastest aperture? I couldn't tell you. And yet, I don't know whether it's a faster lens that's artificially stopped down, or whether it's just got very small elements to make it less expensive to produce. So it is interesting, though, that lenses now this year, so some of the newly announced lenses that are coming out, are not going for ultra fast speed. And we talked about this at the end of last year, and talking about the mirrorless future, where speed isn't vitally important. You don't need to have an f1.2 lens to achieve critical focus when you've got live view on your mirrorless camera and the ability to zoom in for manual focus adjustment with your mirrorless camera screen or viewfinder and things like that. So I think that if that is actually the future, where lenses are a little bit slower and more focused on optical quality, that's probably a pretty good thing for those of us who are buying lenses and want to achieve good image results. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about the coming 2022 lenses, and whether I'm on track or way off base with what I think is going on with some of these lens designs. And I'll see you in the next Cameras and Coffee. Have a good day.